Well, please join me in welcoming the founder and CEO of Kind Snacks and the Kind Movement, Daniel Lubetzky.
Thank you. John, I want to just start by saying you were next to me. I'm upset at you because you made me cry a few times. It's really, really humbling to be here. It's really, really energizing to see the community, the inspiration of a business person that wanted to give back, and generations getting together and making such a difference, one person at a time, in such incredible ways. It's really, really inspiring and humbling. And thanks to all of you guys for the work you do every day. It really, really is very touching.
Now, I want to take a quick poll. Two things I want to ask you. How many of you in the audience, just raise your hand if the answer is yes, have tried a Kind bar or a Kind snack? Oh, are you happy to see that?
No, I'm not happy. How many have never tried a Kind bar before?
Okay.
Those are the people I want to get after.
Yeah.
Jeff, make sure they try one.
And how many of you have read Daniel's book, Do the Kind Thing? Okay, so we have some room there. Now look, as you know, most of you realize Daniel has been very successful with Kind. But you know, he didn't start his career with Kind. And so the first question I want to ask you, Daniel, is about lessons you've learned, particularly from failure. I hate to put it this way, but you failed big time in the early days in business. But you've
Make me cry again.
But you've succeeded. You've succeeded big time with Kind. Was failure a good or bad thing to you, and how did it change the way you do business and think about things?
Well, when failure happens, it's a bad thing. But when you go back and reflect on it, it's without any doubt I can connect the dots today very clearly to all the reasons why we're succeeding today, having been born from the failures that we learned from. And you obviously, when you're failing, it's not pretty and it's painful. And the more your efforts and the bigger your efforts, the more that sometimes you're going to have a setback. And without any doubt, those early setbacks gave us the lessons for us to get it right the next time around. And I can connect whether it's new product development or calibrating the mission that's important to us with the way we talk to our consumers, or migration strategy. Find every single aspect of what we do today benefits from having learned from our mistakes. So I think it's very important to not be afraid to make mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, it means you're not pushing yourself hard enough, and to make sure that you're learning from those mistakes and keeping them close to your heart, because those will be the seeds of your success. If you how do you say when you put water on them? If you water them with introspection.
Right. Well, now, one story I wanted you to share with the folks that related to a failure that was very interesting in the book, read the book, is when you first were ordering Dead Sea products, cosmetics, and the experience you had when you met the truck that delivered the products to you. Tell us about what you were expecting and what you actually got.
I opened the book with this example because I was trying to use business as a force for bringing neighbors together to try to get Israelis and Arabs to trade with one another. And so we did this test with 7 different types of Dead Sea minerals, with mud masks, hand treatment cream with avocado oil, and all these aromatherapy products. And I ordered 500 of each of those 7 products to try to do a market test to see which ones would sell better. So I lived in a small studio apartment in New York City, and when the delivery came, the guy rang the door and was like, "Yeah, just come on up." And he says, "What? You don't know what you're talking about. Come downstairs." And I went downstairs, and it was a 20-foot truck. And I had completely miscalculated. I was a confused Mexican Jewish lawyer trying to sell Dead Sea minerals. I didn't know how to. I literally, it was a 20-foot truck, and my studio apartment was probably from the corner of that stage to here. It was very small. The stuff didn't fit, so I recruited that poor man to help me bring everything up on the passenger elevator, and we filled my apartment with all those boxes. So I had a futon, and behind the futon there were boxes threatening to follow me around everything. If I needed to take a shower or go to the bathroom, I had to go around the labyrinth. It was a very important strategic choice when I would try to get a bowl of cereal, because I could expend more calories going through the boxes than coming back. And the problem is that I thought, okay, it'll come and go within a few days, but I put on some neighborhood ads in the neighborhood newspapers talking about the theory of economic cooperation, how economics can bring people together and shatter stereotypes and cement relations between people. And almost as if I just had to, at the very bottom, it was all text, and it was all the theory from my college and law school years about economics of cooperation, and at the bottom it just described the different products. But who would not want to give his mother the gift of beautiful skin and peace in the Middle East? So, I was not worried that the stuff would fly. And Mother's Day came. I was going to sell it in gift baskets, and Mother's Day came, and Mother's Day went, and I got a total of 3 phone calls. The first one was an accountant trying to sell me her accounting services. Had she known there was nothing to account for, she would have not wasted her time. The second one was an AT&T operator, and the third I thought was a consumer, but actually was another person selling Dead Sea Minerals, who was the only person curious enough to see what this ad was about. So I didn't sell one single thing.
You got stuck with a lot of inventory, didn't you?
And I didn't have a dating life, because anybody, it looked like I was running a spa. You came into the hall, it's like overwhelmed you. And right now it's really fun to talk about, but I remember those boxes, I remember those boxes. I had a tiny balcony, and I had to put the boxes, literally block the balcony and protect the boxes with some plastic. So,
right.
But literally and figuratively, light was blocked. There was not one ray of sunlight that would come into my...
So you've come a long way since then, and I wanted to let everyone know that if you stay to the end, you'll get a free Kind bar and a free copy of the book. So it's definitely worth staying for, in addition to what Daniel has to say. Now, in the book, Daniel, you talk about avoiding what a lot of people would call false dichotomies. That's not the phrase you use, but I would...
But Donn, can I want to actually just share what was the lesson from... Donn ordered 500 boxes of Dead Sea Minerals. No, but besides that one, there were many lessons. One of them was, for us, what I learned is don't lead with the mission when you're selling consumer products. The mission is what gives us meaning. It really, really is what makes me wake up in the morning and give it my very best. It's what excites me about the future of trying to turn Kind into a movement, not just a company. But a lady that works for the production company said, well, I love your products. Your mission's okay, but your product is what I love. And we're aware of that. Like when we poll people, purposely we didn't talk about it. Most people here in the audience hadn't heard about our social mission. And maybe we overdid it, because in my earlier ventures, I talked so much about the mission. And here we purposely lead with high quality products, and it's about doing the kind thing for your body and for your taste buds. And the third tenet of our brand, which is doing the kind thing for your world, which is about our social mission, we do it, but we don't publicize it as much, because we want to calibrate that. And that's just an example of a lesson that I had, but I can draw from every one of our failures lessons about how to be obsessive about quality, because earlier on in my earlier ventures I wasn't, or about be focused in what you do and don't try. And in the book we have 10 tenets and a lot of stories about a lot of failures that we connect to.
Now, I know one of the lessons you learned that would be relevant to many of the nonprofit executives here today is had to do with expansion. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and by the way, I've also been very involved with nonprofit work. I started a foundation, and I've done a lot of work, and a lot of the work that Kind has benefited from is from my experiences in the nonprofit world, and in creating a movement, and in connecting to to our community and making them be part of our journey of inspiring kindness, which I can talk about. But there's a lot that the nonprofit world can learn from the business world. There's a lot that the business world can learn from the nonprofit world. But in terms of focus, it applies across the table. Is just be careful to understand what you're about. If you're starting something or if you're part of something, make sure that you understand what it is for you, and make sure that you understand the mission of the enterprise that you're a part of, and that you stay focused on it. You can't achieve focus and excellence if you don't truly understand what you're about. So you really need to understand concisely and concretely what is it that you're about. And if you do an exercise in whatever social enterprise you're a part of, and ask everybody in your organization, as well as the people that are receiving your services, what do we stand for, what we're about, and everybody doesn't answer it the same way, there's an opportunity for you to really work on distilling precisely what the mission is and what it's about. And then it's about focusing and being very careful before you expand to really do with excellence what you started to do. Because the same thing that I think makes me talented is my biggest undoing, which is the creativity and entrepreneurial aspect of my personality. It's good because it helps me create stuff, but it also can paralyze an organization if I want to do too many things. And I'm sure in this audience there's a lot of you guys that also love making a difference and doing something important. But if you try to make too many differences too quickly and come up with too many programs, it's much more likely that you're not going to end up doing any of them well enough. And it's better to focus, deliver with excellence. And sometimes the creative types like me want to do all these other things, and we're channeling that creativity there. The trick is to take that creativity and channel it to doing that focused work better. And there's a lot of ways to channel that creativity in a focused fashion. And it's very important to build the core before you try to expand.
Right. In other words, don't compromise quality for the sake of expansion. I remember
Correct.
reading in that. Now,
You said it better.
Well, I don't make that claim. In your book, you talk about the phrase "thinking with and," A-N-D. In the way I interpreted it was that, there are so many false dichotomies. Sometimes we think that it's either this or that, and you talk about trying to achieve a situation in which you can say it's this and that. Could you explain that and give us maybe a couple of examples of how you've applied that?
So first, there are choices we need to make in life. One of my team members, Jack Antevi, at our annual company meeting said, I'm going to talk about the philosophy of or, because we need to make choices. And it's true. So not everything can be done dually, but there are a lot of times where, to be expedient, our brain is designed to help us achieve shortcuts for expediency. It's why sometimes we engage in generalizations and discrimination, because our brain's trying to pack all of this information, and obviously that's a very dangerous thing. So we need to be very aware of it. But there's also a lot of things in our daily life where we think that two goals are incompatible and that you have to choose between this or that. And if you're able to isolate the assumptions that you're making leading to that dichotomy, sometimes you're able to actually come up with creative ways to achieve both. For example, in Kind's case, is to do something that's both socially impactful and economically sustainable. Or when we came up with Kind, the products that I was in the food space, and the products that I was eating as snacks tended to be not very wholesome, and to be convenient, it was the false dichotomies that you have to be either convenient or wholesome. Think of something that's wholesome, like an apple or a banana, but it perishes quickly, and if you're traveling with it or keeping it in your office, it might not keep as well, and the stuff that can travel with you, like a Twinkie, will sustain a nuclear devastation, but it's not very wholesome. So we were trying to challenge that notion, and same whether something's tasty or healthy, or in so many different things in life, in everyday operations, where you create a lot of values when you encounter opportunities where people for a long time have been doing something one way, and they assume that's the way to do it. And then if you're able to isolate that assumption and say, well, does it really have to be that way? And it's not about taking the shorter way out, actually. It probably takes longer and harder work upfront to do the thinking, and maybe in the initial stages it's actually going to take more work, but in the long term you might actually create so much value by being able to achieve two seemingly incompatible objectives. And in the book, I have not just the whole initial chapter about it, but the entire book weaves in examples how we thought with and across different disciplines.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wanted to get sort of at a personal level, that's kind of a two-part question. Ultimately, I'm going to be asking you to talk about the kind movement and kind causes. But first, I want to explore with you what motivated you to get into that. Now, in the book, you tell a much longer story, but in brief, your father's name is Roman, and he was a Holocaust survivor who was born in Latvia, but then moved to Lithuania with his parents and his older brother, and was 9 years old when the Nazis invaded Lithuania. So share with us, what about that story and other things that you grew up with and heard about motivated you to start, which what you'll explain later is the kind movement and kind causes?
So I never got a chance to meet Mr. Weinberg, but his commitment to kindness reminds me very much of what my dad was like. My dad passed away in 2003, and ironically, the company was founded in 2003, and well, the company is conceived, brand Kind was conceived in 2003, and looking back, it's very clear that Kind was at the essence of who my dad was and the inspiration for creating this brand. And what struck me a lot about what I learned from my dad about the Holocaust was that he did not pull any punches. When I was 9 years old, he was telling me about what he went through, and my mom pulled him aside and said, Roman, you know, he's 9 years old. Why are you telling him all this? And he said, he's 9 years old and he needs to hear it. I was 9 years old when I needed to live it. And he made sure to tell me some very, very painful stories about how the human race lost its humanity and how we did things that were so horrible and dehumanized, you know, millions of people. And at the same time, he always made sure to remind me that not everybody was like that, and that in fact the only reason he was alive was because of the kindness of strangers. And not all of those strangers were nice people. There was a German soldier that when people were not watching, threw a potato by my dad's feet.
A spoiled potato.
A spoiled potato. And my dad really felt that not just the nourishment of that potato had helped him survive, but also that sense of acknowledgement of humanity that that soldier had looked into my dad's eyes. My dad then must have been 12, 13. He was 9 when the war started, 15 and a half when he was liberated. And he felt that that moment gave him the ability to keep on. And even when the war started, when my dad was 9 years old, there was a superintendent that when the paramilitary forces were going up and down the apartment building where my dad's family lived, he went to my grandfather and he said, Lubetzky. And my grandfather said, yes, like, I want you to know that when the paramilitary forces told me where all the Jews were, I pointed them to all of these things and look at what happened, they're all dead. But I spared your family because whenever I walked down the stairs, you looked at my eyes and you were always nice to me. And so I'm letting you go, but leave before I change my mind. But this was not a nice man. I mean, he went and he did direct the paramilitary forces to all the other Jewish families. This was not a nice man. A few months earlier, my dad told me a story about the same man that he told my father, you're hungry, huh? You're hungry. You know, the war had started. There was not enough food. My dad said, yes, like, come, I'll show you where there's some food. And he took my dad, who was 9 years old,
This is a rough story.
and he pointed him to some dead bodies, and he said, here, these are Jews. Go ahead, you can eat them. And my dad was 9 years old. And the two things to take back from that are, number one, how did a man that was so subhuman and that was such a bad person have a moment of humanity to spare my family because he had been treated with kindness? And the second one is, how will someone like my dad, who went through such horrible stuff, manage to just be such a sweet, kind person throughout his life? And he felt like he was living on borrowed time, and everywhere he went, he would just smile at people, and he would, if the flight attendant or the waiter was having a tough day, he would not let on till he would like crack a smile, and he would start telling joke after joke after joke, and he was very good at telling jokes. And whether it was the president of the bank or the bank teller, he treated everybody as an equal and always made people smile. And my mom and dad were that weird couple that wherever you looked, they were, if we were in the movie theater, they were offering popcorn to all the neighbors behind them. And does that ever happen here in Baltimore?
All the time. I see a lot of people who have done that.
So I think that was what I wanted to distill. I mean, that beauty of that, of the kindness that.
Right. So how did those kinds of stories and that experience, and you were only 9 when you were introduced to these facts, how did that inspire you, or how did it help you to create the kind movement and kind causes? What are they?
Okay, and actually, I want to touch on something deeper for 1 second, and then I'll tell you practically.
Sure.
But a lot of people think, oh, this is the kind guy. And I'm as imperfect as any person, and what motivates me is survival. Because you said I was 9 years old. So this stuff really, really marked me. And so the work that I do, not just with Kind, but with the other things that I've started, the common thread in everything I do is building bridges between people, because I don't want what happened to my father to happen to other human beings ever again. And so the power of kindness is not just that you discover each other's humanity and connect with that other, but it's also that it's just what we nerds call the net happiness aggregator. And for the non-nerds, I'll explain what I mean by that. When I'm kind to you, and I think the ambassador spoke really beautifully about this, when you're kind to somebody, and the issue of karma, in that moment, it comes back to you. When you're kind to someone, not only does that somebody feel better about themselves, but you feel better about yourself. And everybody in this room in particular understands the power of us affirming our own lives and meaning for ourselves by doing good unto others. It just fills us up with so much affirmation. And so if we only could bottle that and expand it so that more people can be kind to others, we could just increase happiness. And the trick about it is that kindness is magical because it's selfless, because it's authentic. And so in our efforts to inspire and increase kindness, we cannot destroy its purity. We can't, for example, say, hey, if everybody's kind to one another, you'll win a kind bar. Or if you're kind to one another, we'll send you to Disney. It destroys the authenticity of it. So for the last 10 plus years, we've been playing with ways to inspire and celebrate and increase kindness without undermining it. And there's a couple models that we found. One of them is called Kind Causes, where anybody, and I encourage everybody, I promised myself while this was happening that I was not going to say this, but I am going to say this. I know that you guys, I think there was an honorarium that I get for doing here that we were going to donate to the digital
Harbor. What we saw in the movie? Yeah.
The Digital Harbor Foundation.
Great.
But I want to match that to every one of the other entities that was here.
That's terrific.
They were
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you. That's really wonderful, Daniel.
So for each of them, and it's a very small thing, but
I appreciate that.
but I really hope, and I very sincerely say this, and I'll come back to Kind Movement, Kind Foundation in a second, but I really hope, it's really amazing what you guys are building. It's really, really inspiring the way you think and the way you act. And if, as we're on our own journey of increasing our commitments to society, if we can partner with you and learn from you, it will be a real honor.
That's great.
So, but in the things that we're doing today, Kind Causes, any of the organizations here can go to our website, kindmovement.com, and you can load up a proposal for what you'd like people to support. And then every month, we choose one cost to get behind, and we donate. Currently, it's $10,000 plus time from our staff to help leverage them and increase their actions. But we're actually in December going to announce the next phase in the program, and we're going to increase it very significantly. But the cool thing about the way it works is that the way we select the groups to support is the community selects them by pledging small kind acts of their own. So if you're inspired by Digital Harbor Foundation, you pledge a kind act. If you're inspired by Sarah's House, you pledge a kind act in their honor. So all of us are changing the world a little small kind act at a time and then triggering a big kind act for those who need it most. So that's the first way we do it, kind causes. And then the other thing we do is called Kind Awesome, where we have these little cards. The mic is stuck in the middle. Let's go. So I carry these with me everywhere I go. And if I notice somebody that does a kind act to somebody else, like if I'm on a subway and I notice that somebody carries a stroller up the stairs to help them, then I will approach them and say, well, try to approach them, and if they don't run away or call the police because they think I'm a stalker, if they haven't run, because New York City, you're from Baltimore, you know what I'm saying. But that's part of what we're trying to do, to get people to feel comfortable getting outside their zone of comfort and connect with other human being and just being nice to each other. So, what we do is we say, oh, that was really kind awesome. And in appreciation for your kindness, you can go to the website, enter this code, and we send you a couple kind bars, but much more important, it comes with another card. So the next time you spot somebody doing the kind act to somebody else, you can then pass it on. And we started, I feel like we're on the Oprah show or something. You don't need to applaud.
New cars out there for everyone. Yeah. On Daniel.
Oh, but you did remind me. Well, the cool thing about this is, number one, Jeff and Julie are here from our team, and they brought kind awesome cards for all of you. So if you want, you'll get them, and you can give them to people that you want to celebrate. And second, even more important, you're receiving the news 2 days before, but 2 days from now, we're going to announce publicly a program where now, currently it's 600 of us putting kind acts and doing this. Starting on Friday, we're going to announce that anybody in the United States is going to be able to celebrate a kind act by going to howkindofyou.com, and you're going to be able to, if you spot somebody doing a kind act, send them, honor their kind act by sending them a little digital kind card, and then they'll get to do that. And thank you.
Thank you. Now, Daniel, we've got, I just got the signal, we have a little less than a minute left, so I want to skip to my last question, which is this. What do you do for just pure enjoyment other than snacking on kind bars?
My biggest enjoyment is my family, my kids. Before I got married and had kids, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't understand how much meaning you can get from raising good kids. I thought that my meaning was building bridges through the work I did and through all the ventures I've started. I thought that was what my life's mission was. And then once I got married and had kids, I recognized that just as big a mission is to just build good human beings that will also contribute to society. And I just enjoy them so much. I just play with them, and I just, it's my biggest enjoy. I mean, I love movies. I read books, but seriously, my greatest joy is just playing with the kids. And
well, I guess we'll have no doubt that your kids will be very kind people.
I hope so.
And I just want everyone to thank Daniel Lubetzky for coming today.
Thank you.
It was great.
You get out?
You're done.